Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. I hope you're doing well. This is, and I'm Marwan Rad. We've reached in Surah Baqara, verse number 58. So we continue our reading and explanation, actually. As usual, I read the Arabic verse and then the English translation, and we elaborate on it. We were talking all the time about the Jews, the way they were preferred among people, and how they were dealing in their life, and how they had the covenant with God, and how they broke this or breached this covenant, and so on. God was explaining us, was telling us kind of, detail about all this. We reached a point where I'll read it in Arabic and continue in English. وَإِذْ قُلْنَا ادْخُلُوا هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةَ فَكُلُوا مِنْهَا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمْ رَغَدًا وَادْخُلُوا الْبَابَ سُجَّدًا وَقُولُوا حِطَّةٌ نَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ خَطَايَاكُمْ وَسَنَزِيدُ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So we reach a point where God is telling us how it goes with them, and at this particular point, He's saying, and when we said, it means when God said to Israel, to the Israelite, enter this city and eat freely of it what you will, and enter the gate in submission and say in mitigation, we will forgive you your errors and will increase the doers of good. It's kind of let's say an offer kind of. God told them to enter this city, whatever, it's any probably at that time, and to establish yourself there, settle down, and everything you find is yours. Like you want to eat, you want to use, and so on. And when you enter the door of this city, bow in submission to your Lord for what He, for what He offered you, like a place to settle down, and say a mitigation. Exactly. I mean, and say, okay, this is where we're gonna stay. This is going to be our home place, etc. And if you do, we will increase our graciousness upon you. There. Okay, we continue. Always in Arabic first. فبدل الذين ظلموا قولا غير الذي قيل لهم فأنزلنا على الذين ظلموا رجسا من السماء بما كانوا يفسقون. Then those who did wrong changed the saying to other than what was said to them. And we sent down a scourge from the sky upon those who did wrong because they were wantonly perfidious. It means some of the Israelites, they changed the wording, let's say, or the order of God in such a way that they put it upside down or something. So at this point, God said that, so we punished them and we sent on them, curse from the sky on those who did wrong. Actually, on those who did wrong, because they were kind of deceitful. They were deceitful, deliberately deceitful. وَإِذِ اسْتَسْقَى مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ, and when Moses asked water for his people, which means they needed water, there was no water there, so Moses supplicate God, God, give us some water, my people are in need, and so on. Okay? فَقُلْنَا اضْرِبْ بِعَصَاكَ الْحَجَرَ. So God told Musa, strike this rock with your cane or the staff. I'll read it exactly in English, how Mr. Gerens has translated it. فَقُلْنَا اضْرِبْ بِعَصَاكَ الْحَجَرَ, and we said, strike thou the rock with thy staff. Staff, it means your thing, your which is the cane. It's famous cane of Moses. فانفجرت منه 12 عينا قد علم كل إناس مشربهم. Then there gushed therefrom 12 springs, each tribe knew its drinking place. So when Moses did strike the rock, so kind of 12 separate out of this strike, we know Moses and the miracles that he performed. 12 springs of water was, let's say, were initiated or were suddenly there to each tribe one spring, because they were, we say in Arabic, اثنا عشر سبطا, 12 kind of divisions, if you want, or 12 groups, something like this. Okay, so 12 springs for 12 tribes, if you want. كلوا واشربوا من رزق الله ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين. Eat and drink of the provision of God and commit not evil in the earth, working corruption. So God told them, there you are, you have already the in the city, the place where you can plant and eat whatever you plant, and now I gave you those 12 springs, so eat and drink. You have enough provision from God, but don't do bad deeds. Don't do evil things. وَإِذْ قُلْتُمْ يَا مُوسَى لَنْ نَصْبِرَ عَلَى طَعَامٍ وَاحِدٍ فَادْعُ لَنَا رَبَّكَ يُخْرِجْ لَنَا مِمَّا تُنْبِتُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْ بَقَلِهَا وَقِثَّائِهَا وَفُومِهَا وَعَدَسِهَا وَبَصَلِهَا. At this particular moment, as they are too demanding, they always wanted more and more and more. So God is telling us sequentially how this is happening. Every now and then they want something. Every now and then, and we give them everything they want. So, and when you said, "Oh Musa, we are weary of one food. We don't want only one food, which is the man and salwa." Remember, the man is kind of sweet, and the bird, the quail. All the time, that we don't want that. Only one thing, one kind of food. So call thou to thy Lord for us, that he bring forth for us of what the earth puts forth of its herbs, and its cucumbers, and its corn, and its lentils, and its lentils. Oh my God, I lost. Hold on a second. Okay, I got it. Okay. Okay. So call your Lord and them to provide to us something else, like the vegetables, like the cucumbers, like corn, like lentils, like onions, and so on. At this time, قال موسى قال أتستبدلون الذي هو أدنى بالذي هو خير. He said, would you exchange for what is temporal, what is better, which means you are substituting what is you know what is better with what is lesser, because man and salwa is something, you know, of quality, of value, and very good, and so on. اهبطوا مصرا. So came the order, okay, now you become frustrated. This reaction, اهبطوا مصرا فإن لكم ما سألتم وضربت عليهم الذلة والمسكنة وباءوا بغضب من الله ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون النبيين بغير الحق ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون. So as they become more and more frustrating, came the order, okay, get you down to Misr. Misr means a piece of land, like a small country, like a small geographic area, etc. Then will you have what you ask, and humiliation and poverty were pitched upon them, and they incurred wrath from God because they denied the truths of God. And they killed the prophets without cause because they opposed and exceeded all bounds. Now, this is kind of a briefing of a long story that the Israelites, let's say, lived, in the sense they acted and reacted and so on. So the order came, go to Misr. It's another piece of land, geographic area, as I said, and over there you will have what you ask. Okay? Which means you will have those vegetable and onion and cucumbers and lentils and so on, which means grains, lentils, not simply lentils, maybe, you know, all what can be planted. And because they were frustrating, so God kind of put them under the test in a way that is like they became like humiliated, okay, and running to plant this, plant that, to eat, to have water, because compared with previous time, they were having on them from the sky the sweets and the quails, easy. So actually they incurred wrath, which means kind of anger from God, because they were too demanding, asking too much, and plus because they were rejecting sometimes the commands and the verses and the signs that God sent with them for guidance with Moses. Now, over the years, over the time as well, and they killed the prophets without cause. We know the story. They killed John and they killed Zachariah. Okay, both were prophets, and almost for no reason. So they kind of surpassed their limits, and even the limits of anything, of everything, just by disobeying. They were like, let's say, arrogant and defying and all this stuff. إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والنصارى والصابئين من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وعمل صالحا فلهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Now this is a beautiful little long verse. It I mean, it indicates the policy, if I may, it indicates the policy that God implemented within his creation, amongst mankind. How? I'll explain. Those who heed warning, which means those who believe, the believers, and those who hold to Judaism, and those who, stick or stuck themselves to Judaism. I can't explain it more than that. And the Nazarenes, and those who follow Jesus, and the Sabaeans, and those kind of resulting from the day of Abraham. Because in the day of Abraham, they believe in God, but they had no things like Ten Commandments, no things like the Gospel, nothing like the Quran, etc. So they are specifically known as Sabaeans because they are the remaining from the era of Abraham and the ones they follow the steps of Abraham. Now, all these four groups, the believers, those who hold on Judaism, the Nazarenes, and the Sabaeans, whoso believes in God and the last day and works righteousness, pay attention to this. Three things: believing in God, in the last day, and do good, good deeds. They have their reward with their Lord, and they need not fear, nor will they regret. So they will be the winners in the sense that whoever believes in God and the last day and do good deeds, this is the minimum that God requires from mankind to do in order to be compensated in paradise. And I have to elaborate a little, like a remark. Those who nowadays we call Muslims are really believers, not Muslim. Muslims is minimum those three things, as I said, that God requires. This is the real religion of God. Ask you to believe in God, one God, ask you to believe in the last day, and to do good deeds in life for the needies and the poor, etc. Those who followed Muhammad and do their prayer and do the fasting and do the zakat, the alms, it's like good deeds as well, but it's specific, if I may, according to each one's fortune or profits and so on. It's a certain percentage, 2.5%, which is, let's say, regulated sadaqah or good deeds. So those four groups of people, okay, if they do believe in God, the last day, and do good deeds, they will be rewarded in paradise. I'm giving a little bit more on top of that to say what is the difference between those and the followers of Muhammad. Followers of Muhammad, they pray, they fast, they go to, they do the pilgrimage, and they do the zakat, the alms. Now, of course, those supposedly, the followers of Muhammad, supposedly are Muslims like the four other groups. Because the first one of the other groups are the Lazina Amanu, who believed in God, the last day, and do good deeds. On top of this, they do the prayer, they do the fasting. Okay, it's an extra. It's extra. So they are kind of, let's say, I hate to say it like this, but it's just to make it easy to understand, like the first class, like, well, anyway. So, so these are the rewarded and the winners and the life and the ever after. We continue. وإذ أخذنا ميثاقكم ورفعنا فوقكم الطور خذوا ما آتيناكم بقوة واذكروا ما فيه لعلكم تتقون. What I meant explaining the last verse is that paradise is not assigned only, like some Muslim, I have to say, ignorant thing, that is, only for us, the Muslim. No, Muslim doesn't mean you only. Muslims can mean as well a Nazarene, a Sabaean, a Jew, in the sense that they believe in God, the one and only, they believe in the last day, and they do good deeds. This has to be well understood, and this is Islam. This is the basic. This is the basic, the base of being Muslim. So, we go back to the verse, وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَكُمْ وَرَفَعْنَا فَوْقَكُمُ الطُّورَ. And when we took your agreement and raised the mount above you, it's some miracle known that that God did elevate the Mount Tor over their heads, the heads of the Israelites. So he reminded them at that particular moment and told them, خذوا ما آتيناكم بقوة واذكروا ما فيه لعلكم تتقون. Okay, hold fast what we give you and remember what is therein, that you might be in prudent fear. Which means hold fast what we give you. That is, I believe, is the 10 Commandments that was revealed to Moses. So take it and apply it on yourself, apply it in your life, and so on. So you may be saved. Prudent fear, rewarded kind of. ثم توليتم من بعد ذلك, then turned you away after that, which means you didn't follow those commandments, or most of you, or some of you, and so on. So it's addressed to those who didn't follow, but in general. فلولا فضل الله عليكم ورحمته لكنتم من الخاسرين. And were it not for the bounty of God upon you and His mercy, you would have been among the losers. And if God did not have mercy on you, you could have been losers because of this disobedience that you had, because of this rejection that you have to follow the 10 Commandments, or what was revealed to Moses in the book. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمُ الَّذِينَ اعْتَدَوْا مِنْكُمْ فِي السَّبْتِ فَقُلْنَا لَهُمْ كُونُوا قِرَدَةً خَاسِئِينَ فَجَعَلْنَاهَا نِكَالًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهَا وَمَا خَلْفَهَا وَمَوْعِظَةً لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Now here it's a story of those who, as the Israelites was repeatedly denying and ignoring the commandments and God's guidance and Moses' instructions and so on. One of those instructions, which is one of the 10 Commandments, that they shouldn't work on Saturday. It's some kind of it's well known, the Sabbath. and it is symbolized by the fact that God created the earth and the sky and everything on earth in 6 days, and then he kind of symbolically or metaphorically rested. It corresponds that day was Saturday, Sabbath. Okay, so symbolically on Sabbath, the Israelites had to kind of do like God did, in the sense that Saturday is a day of rest. Amongst those Israelites, there were groups who did not rest Saturday. They went fishing, they went doing something, disobeying the commandment of God. Okay, so the verse said, and you knew those among you who transgressed the Sabbath. You knew there are amongst you some who transgressed the Sabbath, which means faked the fact of resting on Saturday, etc. Then we said to them, be despised apes. So God, like, he incurred, let's say, his wrath on them, in the sense of telling, you be despised like apes. Now, I don't know how much this has happened in the fact that they became like apes, or simply, I mean, not physically, of course, or simply like, be degraded or something like this. But it was wrath incurred on them, and we made it an exemplary lesson to those at its time. So this should be a lesson in that time, which means it is specifically for the Israelites in that particular time, and so on, to be a lesson for the others in that sense. And that following it, for the people of that time and those who will come after. وَمَوْعِظَةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, and an exhortation to those of prudent fear, and kind of a warning to those who fear God, who want to avoid punishment, and so on. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرَةً قالوا أتتخذنا هزوا قال أعوذ بالله أن أكون من الجاهلين. Now comes the story of the HEIFER, what we call, in other words, al-Baqara. And when Musa said to his people, God commands you to sacrifice a HEIFER. Now the story of this Baqara or HEIFER is that someone was murdered and nobody knew, and so on, and it was intrigued by everyone that they wanted to know who the killer is, and so on. So God told them, if you want to find out, you have to slaughter a HEIFER. So Moses is transmitting this order or this message to them, telling them, God commands you to sacrifice a HEIFER. They said, قالوا أتتخذنا هزوا. They said, does you make mockery of us? Are you kidding us? Are you laughing of us and telling us we have to do this? قال أعوذ بالله أن أكون من الجاهلين. He said, Moses, I seek refuge in God lest I be of the ignorant. Said, I'm not that kind. I'm not that ignorant to tell you something is apparently superstitious, and you see it, you think it's something strange. I'm not that bad, but it's an order from God. قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما هي. They said, call thou to thy Lord for us, that he make plain to us what she is. Now this, at this particular time, it shows how Israelites are demanding and how annoying, if you want, and asking too much, and so in the sense that, well, a heifer is a heifer, a Baqara is a Baqara, a cow is a cow. Go ahead and sacrifice a Baqara. Now they start asking, how is she? What is color, and so on, and we will see in the next verse or two. So they said, call thou to thy Lord for us, that he make plain to us what she is. Let him tell us exactly what is this Baqara, this heifer. He went back to his Lord. Every time they ask him something, he goes back to his Lord. God, what do you mean? And so on. And God tell him this. So at this time, Khal, after asking his Lord, Moses, قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة لا فارض ولا بكر. Moses told them, he says, which means now, he said, that is Moses. He says now, after he said, that is God. She is a heifer, neither old nor young. It's a heifer. It's not too old, it's not too young. عوان بين ذلك. Middling in between, which means neither this, neither that, which means in the middle. فَافْعَلُوا مَا تُؤْمِرُونَ. Then do what you are commanded. So do it as you're told. قالوا, again, ادعوا لنا ربك يبين لنا ما لونها. They said, call thou to thy Lord for us, that he make plain to us what her hue is. Now they want to know, what color is that heifer? We know there are different colors. All animals, particularly cows and Baqara and heifers and so on. So they told him again, still, we want to know what color this heifer should be. He went back to his Lord and asked the Lord, and then his Lord, of course, tell him. He said, Moses said, قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة صفراء فاقع لونها تسر الناظرين. So he said, that is Moses. He says, it's God. This is God. God said, she is a yellow heifer. Whoa, it's a yellow heifer. Bright is her hue. It's a yellow, but it's bright. Yellow like exposed to ray or sun, in the sense that is brilliant yellow, I think. Making glad the beholder. When you look at her, okay, it gives you some pleasant, moment of seeing this color and seeing the heifer like this. At this time, I think we're going to stop now. This is the last verse of today, but then we will continue tomorrow to see what their reaction is on this after choosing the I think they will submit this. Oh, okay. Now we know which heifer we have to sacrifice. Anyway, we stop here today, and I hope that you really enjoyed this half an hour or so, reading and explaining and understanding, hopefully, those verses of Al-Baqarah. I thank you for your listening, and I appreciate that. And see you tomorrow, inshallah.